New Guys Pod, episode 21, coming at you right now. I'm Anthony Colavito, joined by Pat, Graham, and Jordan, like every week. Sports are back. I'm very excited about that. Let's get right into it. The NBA we're going to start with, and our Celtics. Well, besides Graham, he's a Hornets fan for some reason. They're on a bit of a hot streak right now. He's repping the Celtics today. I'll give him that.
I am.
But that's a former Hornet though.
Yeah, but it's Kemba, so it half counts.
Okay. Celtics are on a bit of a hot streak right now, winning the last 4 games. I know they beat Toronto convincingly last Friday. So, what are your guys' thoughts? Are you guys feeling good about the Celtics right now?
Going all the way, baby. 16
That's how I feel right now. Until we lose to Washington tomorrow night.
Who's gonna?
No, I'm kidding. We're not losing to Washington.
I definitely feel better than I did at the beginning.
Yeah.
After we had lost to Miami, I'm sure I speak for every Celtics fan where a lot of us were like don't start this again. Don't fall to the 5 seed. And the big thing was you don't want to fall to the 5 seed or the 4 seed because you'll have to face Milwaukee in the second round. It wasn't like you had to face the Pacers or the Heat. It was like you don't want to face Milwaukee. So now that we secured the 3, you at least push Milwaukee away until the Eastern Conference Finals, probably. But yeah, I think we did our job. We kept the 3 seed. We weren't really going to catch the 2 seed. That was like was there mathematically a chance? Yes, but I think we were like 4.5 back with 8 games playing. It's nearly impossible, especially with the Raptors starting off so hot. So we kept the 3 seed, and now we get the bum ass Sixers in the first round. So that'll be easy.
I'm excited about that. I'm very excited about that because when we, especially without Ben Simmons, when we lost to Miami, I'm like, damn it, like they're gonna catch us because we don't look good right now. I thought we would at least lose to the Raptors.
Yeah.
Because they convincingly beat the Lakers. We were talking about it last week. They reminded us why they're the remaining champions, and I definitely felt really good about that game. The way we just manhandled them on the entire time. What did we beat them by? 22. I think it was 122 to 100 flat, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
something like that.
I definitely did not want to see Indiana in the first round. That's definitely something I did not want because that was a very likely first round exit.
See, here's my thing. I understand that argument that you don't want to face Indiana just because T.J. Warren's so hot and Oladipo, Miles Turner, they all have talent. But we do match up, I think, better with Indiana just because we get bowled over whenever we have to face a good center. For example, like Joel Embiid, who we're going to have to face in the first round, probably, as long as he's healthy. Just because we really don't have a defensive... Enes Kanter is awful at defense. Tice is average at best, and then Robert Williams is a pretty good rim protector, but he gets like run over on pick and rolls. So, and Embiid and whoever is going to run point, Shake Milton, whoever it will probably be, exposing that. So I would rather face the Sixers too, but I think it's closer just because at least our wings, Tatum and Brown, can match up better with Oladipo and Warren. At least better than Tice can with Embiid. So, but yeah.
Yeah. I think the Sixers without Simmons especially, obviously they're a very talented team with him. They have Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson and Al Horford, the disgraced Celtic, who I no longer have any respect for whatsoever. Without him, I think, they're a much slower team. Their ability to score points on the fast break and exploit mismatches at the point guard position obviously loses, obviously they lose that, and they also lose a huge defensive piece. Ben Simmons is one of the best defenders in the league already, given his size and speed and everything. So I think it's a very good matchup, obviously, for the Celtics. Probably couldn't have gotten a better one, I don't think, in the first round.
Yeah.
Graham, you have anything to say about the Celtics? I know you're a Hornets fan.
First of all, you got to bring that up every time. Yes, I'm a
we have
Hornets
to make it
fan.
clear.
It's not a label that I wear proudly. Okay, first of all, while we're on the topic, so I received this week.
For those listening on Spotify, he has a basketball.
I have a basketball, and it's signed by Frank Kaminsky himself.
Oh, I remember a few years back when.
Wow, it's worthless.
That's
it was
exactly.
like get this one to 1 million likes. I remember it was just a picture of Frank Kaminsky, and they were like, let's get Frank Kaminsky to 1 million likes.
Probably had like 3.
It had like 500,000.
Graham, did someone pay you to take that ball? Like they paid you?
I actually got it for free.
Yeah, they paid. Yeah,
I did get it for free, but I've got the certificate of authenticity and everything. So
Oh
it's
wow.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
so it's
real.
official.
But yeah, I'm still mad because Hornets should have made the bubble. Said that a long time ago.
They weren't making it, bro.
Can't dwell on the past.
They would have done better than the Wizards. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay, but I think Wizards with Beal would have done better than you guys.
Round 1, start.
First of all, before I get into my Celtics talk, I want to address all this back here. I'm moving into college in a couple days, so that's why I'm not in my normal camera angle. I've got all this mess back here behind me.
Everyone on Spotify is confused as hell right now.
I depicted it pretty well.
He's forgetting we're on Spotify now.
I'm not forgetting, and Apple Podcasts, by the way.
Link below.
Shameless plug.
So I've got all my bags packed up behind me. This Kemba jersey that I've got on came in today. That's why I'm wearing this one and not any other one, because they're all in these bags right here. But the Celtics, I think that they've got the Sixers series in the bag. I think that's not even a question to me. Tatum and Jaylen Brown match up so well against everybody that the 76ers have on deck, and it's not even a question for me. It might be a sweep. They might take one game, whatever. I don't think they should have a problem. And then you go into presumably Toronto. I don't think that the Nets will be able to do much of anything in that series. And from there, I mean, I was watching a little bit of the Nets Sixers game, or not the Nets Sixers, the Raptors Sixers game that was on tonight. And I could not name like any of the people that I saw. I know that both of them were resting a whole lot of starters because the Eastern Conference playoff picture is pretty much set in stone. It is set in stone now. But, you know, the Raptors just aren't as deep as they were last year, you know? Like, last year they made it to the finals based on their bench being able to outproduce pretty much any other bench that they stacked up against, on top of the fact that Kawhi Leonard was just a monster. And so I think that, you know, when you get down to it, that series is going to be the one to watch more so than whoever ends up against probably Milwaukee in the ECF. I think that Raptors Celtics is going to be the series of the playoffs, so to speak, at least on the Eastern Conference side. I think that is going to be something that we talk about a lot when we come back in season 2, as that'll probably be starting up right around the same time that we come back with episode 1. And so that's just all I think about. I think that I haven't watched a whole lot of basketball lately because I've been focused on the NHL and the Canes specifically. We will get to that.
How'd they do today?
Shut up.
Let's not start this now.
Shut up. They did pretty well. All right. They did pretty well. We'll get into it later.
They must have won.
They didn't win, but they did play well.
Jordan, shut up. Jordan, stop. You're just egging them on at this point. Graham, continue.
All right, Celtics.
Presumably, I don't know if you guys can fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure that Brad Wanamaker has been playing a lot better than he was last time we talked. So
I agree. Yeah, I agree 100%.
So that's gonna be key because, you know, Kemba he's a man, but like he can't play 40 minutes a game, and so having somebody to run the floor, especially with the lack of second string production that the Celtics have been suffering from, having somebody to facilitate that is going to be key. And so if he can be giving his all out there, which I mean he obviously is all the time, but if he can be on his A game, that's going to be a big X factor for the Celtics going into the 76ers and the Toronto series as well.
Here's what I'll say. I think it's pretty apparent that the best 3 teams in the East are the literal 3 best teams, as in the 1, 2, 3. Sometimes you have a 4 or 5 where you think they could maybe get a win against one of us, but I don't really see I see the Eastern Conference Finals matchup being between 1 or 2 of those 3 teams. I don't think Miami has enough firepower. Indiana's I'm sorry, they're riding the Warren train right now, and I guess he came down with some foot injury, plantar fasciitis, so who knows if that affects him at all. Yeah. But one thing, Graham, you said about the Raptors, I'd actually argue, I wouldn't say, I'm not sure exactly who they obviously they lost Kawhi last year, but in terms of depth, I don't know how much they lost. I would actually argue that they might be deeper than last year, but they lack that go-to guy maybe, just because I don't know if Siakam's developed into him yet.
They're deep reserves today. They're playing like they're like guys that like like Graham said, like I've never even heard of. So I think those are the guys who might not even be in the playoff rotation.
Yeah.
But
I would
that's
say,
fair.
but where like the Celtics will struggle, and where I think everyone agrees, and it's pretty obvious, is that we don't have a deep bench at all. Like aside from Marcus Smart, Enes Kanter, and Rob Williams, really, I mean, our offensive capabilities on the bench is awful. None of our rookies really contribute a lot. Romeo Langford's pretty much been non-existent. So when our starting five is definitely better than the Raptors, but once it comes down to bench guys in the last few minutes of a quarter, or maybe in the first part of the fourth quarter to give the middle part of the fourth quarter to give you guys a rest, and you're only up by 8 or 9, and then that lead shrinks because your bench guys can't keep up, then you expect Tatum or Kemba or Brown to now have to dig your guys out of the hole, and it might be a little bit harder than that. So obviously the game that we played against them isn't going to be what the series is. No one expected that, but it is like pretty, at least good to see that the Celtics can compete with both the Bucks and the Raptors, which obviously we did, in the past couple of weeks. So,
yeah, one thing I want to say, Jordan, about I agree the top 3 teams are pretty much obviously like the best. Yeah. I do want to say I think obviously us versus the Raptors is like kind of the matchup everybody wants. I think in the second round, at least especially as a Celtics fan, but Miami, I think out of any team in the league, matches up with Milwaukee. Like
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Very well. Like you could see, I think, a very competitive series in that because even the other night, I don't even know. I think it might have been against the Pacers. They had like 8 guys who scored over 10 points.
Oh yeah,
I can see that.
Stupid.
But one thing I would say to that is I saw that there's a graphic before the Heat played the Bucks in the bubble of who can guard Giannis the best, and Bam was by far the best.
Yeah.
And then he got toasted for like 35 and 18. So like the main objective for them is they need to slow down Giannis. It's really like whoever matches up with the Bucks the best is whoever can slow down Giannis the most. Like I could give a shit about who plays on Middleton the best or who can, lock up Eric Bledsoe or whoever. It's literally like if you don't have a guy who can slow down Giannis, you're not going to win the series.
I mean, you could easily just let Giannis go off and clamp everyone else. Not easily, but I mean, if you're looking for a strategy, who cares if Giannis drops 40 if nobody else scores over 10 points?
Yeah, I mean.
So I mean,
sure.
People did that to the Hornets for years,
but the Hornets didn't score.
Yeah.
So.
And
it worked. That's what I'm saying.
The league. So.
But they didn't even have to play defense. They just had Devontae Graham breaking threes.
I didn't mean this year. I meant before Kemba left.
All right, word.
But anyway, I'd say they.
Yeah.
Oh,
one thing I wanted to say.
Actually, no, we're still
interesting storyline that I thought was going to be interesting before Simmons got injured. If you look at like the players that have the most to prove in the playoffs this year, at least, it really comes down to a handful of guys centered around obviously LeBron. I would say Anthony Davis, Giannis, and Russell Westbrook and Harden are probably the guys you think about the most. But Ben Simmons would be in that category if he wasn't hurt, because he has been pretty lackluster in the playoffs, and people always are touting him as, all defensive first team. He should be all defensive first team every year. He should be defensive player of the year. He's a Steve Nash type of player without the shot, who can pass the ball and dish it around and run an offense pretty easily. And so I think he would have, this would have been his year to show that not only the Sixers are able to turn it around from their season, but that he is an elite point guard in the league. And unfortunately now, obviously he's not going to get that chance. I thought that was, go ahead.
I think that easily in my mind, the player with the most to prove, we kind of touched on this a little bit last week about whose legacy would be improved by doing well in the playoffs. And I think that's a different question, but I think the player with the most to prove is Jimmy Butler. And I don't think it's even close, because this is the first time that he's been in the playoffs since his Bulls days, where he's been the number one option. And, obviously he doesn't have the kind of playoff success that would go with being a player of his caliber. And so if he can lead the Heat and take the Bucks like 6 or 7 games, put up some good numbers in that Bucks series, or even, I don't think it'll happen, or even take down the Bucks in the second round, I think that Jimmy Butler automatically just shoots up the rankings in terms of where he stands in NBA greatness right now.
That's fair. I think It definitely differs between players. For like example, obviously, if Giannis got bumped in the second round, you wouldn't give him credit for making it past one round. But Jimmy Butler, on the other hand, he's not the same stature. So I can kind of see that, because I can think for the players that I mentioned, at least for LeBron and AD and Giannis, I have finals are bust. If they don't make it to the finals, it's a fail of a season. For Russ and Harden, I'd say Western Conference Finals, if they take it to 6 games or 7 games, they should get a little bit of credit. And then obviously Ben Simmons is injured, so he's not there. But yeah, I would agree. Jimmy Butler, he's got to beat the Pacers for sure, especially that Warren Butler rivalry that's developed over the season. That'd be some bragging rights that he could take back. But yeah, he's got to prove it, because he hasn't had a team with success with being the go-to guy. So
yeah,
it's definitely his year to show why.
Another guy, I think, if he makes it, I hope he doesn't and somebody else makes it over. But Damian Lillard, if the Blazers do make it, I know they're playing.
They're going to make it. They're going to make it.
No, I hope
they're going to make it.
Holding out hope for Phoenix, but
yeah, me too.
If Damian Lillard makes it, especially after the streak that he's had back-to-back 50-point games, 50-plus point games. That is
51 and then 61. I forget who they played last. I know he dropped 51. One of those numbers against Denver.
And the other was against Mavericks. But if he makes it,
was against Mavericks,
then he just shits his pants. Like, I don't know what's that gonna do. Skip Bayless is gonna have a field day. I'll tell you that right now.
Here's the thing about Dame.
He needs to show up if he makes the playoffs.
There's no doubt he's a great regular season player, and that he is a top point guard in the league. You can't say he isn't, because the stats back it up, obviously. But in the playoffs, he's had very little success contributing enough to get his team in the right spot. For example, he'll begin a playoff run like he did in OKC, absolutely kill it, hit a game-winning shot over one of the better defenders in the league. He's on top of the world. Gets past the second round, into the third round against the Golden State Warriors. No Kevin Durant. Still a tough team, but you'd like to think that they would have competed a little bit more. And he goes in, and I think his fourth quarter percentage was somewhere around 8 for 26, which you can't be the go-to guy and do that every single time. And there was I think it was in the 2015 playoffs. I remember who he played, but he got swept and shot 16% from 3-point. You just can't do that. As a shooter, you can't do that. And people will look at you differently, and that's why I have a little bit of hate towards Dame, just because people have this persona about him that he's this absolute clutch up every game he can perform. He's a top guy in the league. I've seen people saying he's a top 10 player in the league. And look, if you're shooting 40% from the field in your playoff career, you just can't be considered that. And the same goes for Russell Westbrook. Even though I'm a Westbrook fan, they have very similar stats in the playoffs, but Westbrook gets a ton more hate than Damian Lillard does.
So, for the first time ever, I am going to agree with you in what you're saying about the Damian Lillard's playoff career.
For you to agree.
Timestamp.
His playoff career as a whole is kind of disappointing. However, when you talk about what Damian Lillard has had to go throughout the playoffs in his career, just wait, hear me out. He's had to run through. The Warriors have dominated the West for years. And this year, if he gets into the playoffs, he won't have to worry about that. I feel like if Damian Lillard stands a much better chance leading the Blazers into a series against the Lakers, who don't have that premier point guard like the Warriors do with Curry. I feel like he has a much better chance of succeeding in that series and beyond in this year's playoffs than he ever did when he had to go against the Warriors. And I understand that his playoff failures aren't just against the Warriors. He kind of sucked in the series against the Pelicans a couple years back, so on and so forth. He did all right in the series against the Nuggets last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, enough to get there.
Right, exactly. But by and large, he hasn't shown except at the end of a couple of games. But I feel like that's because the teams that he's had to go against are just loaded with point guard talent. And exception being that Pelicans team. And so the Lakers, and then they'll probably end up getting does the NBA do reseeding? I forget.
Yeah, it's reseeding. So they'll get the Clippers probably.
And Patrick Beverley is a great defensive point guard, but I mean, I don't know. He's not a star like Damian Lillard is. I feel like Dame would still be able to get something done in that series, So I'm just saying, I feel like he's set for success this year.
Okay, so I can agree in some instances, which I think is true for all players, that some playoff series that they play, and Russ had some series where I'm like, look, it was just not the right recipe, and he just didn't perform well, and that's that. But there are other series where I'm like, look, he should, like me and Pat were talking about it, the Jazz, he should have beat the Jazz. You don't get beat by rookie Donovan Mitchell. You can't do that as a veteran, at least. The one
Rookie of the year should have been.
Yeah, definitely. We all agree on that. The one problem I have with Dame is that for example, the Warriors, I'm not sure who they had on Dame for most of the series, or any of the series that he played against them.
Yeah.
And whether it was Clay or Steph, it's a pretty big difference. If he had Steph guarding him, Steph has barely any defense. Clay has elite defense. My problem with Dame is that it's not that he wasn't advancing to the finals. It's that he shot so poorly in his playoff career that it wasn't like, I'm not like, well, why didn't he beat the outstanding Warriors team? Why didn't he do that? It's just like shoot well in the series, like take it to 6 games, take it to 5 games, win a game against the Warriors, shoot 45%, and I don't have to say anything because your playoff, it's not you, it's them. But Damian Lillard was one of the main reasons the Blazers lost last year, maybe the main reason. So that's my problem. It's not that I'm expecting this guy to run through the outstanding West that has been better than the East for 10 years. It's just that when you're trying to get to the finals, you can't repeatedly have horrible series, and expect to be touted as some playoff Dame, which I think is ridiculous.
I'm telling you guys right now, just watch out when that Blazers team gives the Lakers a run for their money. Just remember when you heard it. But what we're talking about, Damian Lillard here, and I had up next. I think definitely the best storyline in all of sports right now is the race for that 8th seed in the West. I just think that's so interesting because there's 4 or 5 teams going at it right now. I know Portland's in that spot. What team? Memphis. They just beat out Memphis, and then you still got San Antonio and Phoenix trying to get in. They're all a half a game behind Portland right now. But I want to know who you guys think, but I'm going to get into mine first because I put out an article, I think, a week ago about why the Trailblazers will get in. And they honestly exceeded my expectations because at the time that I wrote that article, they had Denver, the Clippers, Philly, Dallas, and the Nets. And I said they were definitely gonna drop the game to Los Angeles. There was no doubt in my mind, and they almost won that game. If Damian Lillard didn't miss his free throws, they probably could have won that game. And I knew they were gonna beat Philly and Brooklyn, but I thought they were gonna split one between the Nuggets and the Mavericks, and they ended up beating them both. And Damian Lillard had his best games against those two. I think he put up 51 against Denver, and then 61 last night against Dallas. So if they're not making a strong case for why they belong in that 8th spot, then I don't know what is a strong case. Now you guys got to tell me.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Anthony.
Yeah.
I think out of all the teams, definitely I agree that Portland is best equipped, I think, to make a run in the playoffs because they have a good amount of depth. They have guys like obviously CJ McCollum and Dame can shoot the lights out of the building. They're great scorers. But they also got Yusuf Nurkic back, who's a great center, probably top 10 center in the league, top 7 maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to get too deep into it. Then they also have Gary Trent Jr., who's been going off in the bubble, averaging 18.
Name drop.
And Mela.
Name drop. I think shooting above 50% from the field and 3-point range. Then you have guys like Hassan Whiteside, who's great in spurts, and Zach Collins, all these other guys. Definitely the most talented roster, I think, out of the 4 remaining ones.
Definitely the deepest.
Definitely the deepest, yeah. I want to see Book in the playoffs just because, I don't know. Just something about it. Maybe the underdog, they went 7-0 in the bubble so far. I don't know when their last game is. Maybe it's tonight.
It's tomorrow.
I think it's tomorrow, yeah.
So,
who do they play?
So I'm looking at it right now. So tomorrow all 4 of those teams play. The Grizzlies have the Bucks tomorrow at 4.
Without Giannis.
The Suns have the Mavs at the same time as that Grizzlies game. The Spurs have the Jazz, and the Blazers play the Nets. And the Grizzlies-Bucks game is the only one of those 4 that will not be on TNT, so you'll be able to watch all of them. Obviously, this will air after these games have already happened. But
see, the problem is, I think So the Suns play the Mavericks, you said?
Yes.
So I don't know where the West isn't set yet. So I don't know where.
I feel like the
Well, at
Mavs
least
are locked
I
in.
don't think
I
it's
feel like
set.
they're locked into the 7 though.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so if they're locked in, so who knows if Luka doesn't play at all. But I would say that the Suns probably have the toughest matchup, and they have to have the most happen for them to get in. I think they have to have 2 of the 3 Blazers, Grizzlies, or Spurs lose for them to get a shot in. I think that's something I read that they tweeted out. I could be wrong though. I know they have to have the most happen just because they're
According to Bleacher Report, which could very well be wrong,
as they are a lot.
as they are very much of the time, the Suns are in between the Grizzlies and Spurs.
Okay.
So yeah.
So maybe
So
not.
yeah, but still.
Yeah. One thing I want to see Booker. So we want to talk about the MVP of the bubble and stuff. But just before we talk about that, I wanted to say that I think Booker needs this berth just to put him in the next level, because a lot of people have, at least what my gripe towards him is that he's a great scorer. He's going to be an MVP candidate for years to come, but he hasn't exactly performed in the regular season enough to get his team to a significant, playoff spot or be in the playoff picture for most of the season. They obviously had the hot start at the beginning and then just fell off. So him getting into the playoffs, just getting the 8 seed, just shows that he's able to lead the team, and he absolutely has been. But I'd say for me, honestly, this is going to sound weird because I'm not a huge fan of him, but Damian Lillard's probably my MVP for the bubble so far, and just totally basing it off of his numbers and how he's been able to perform in the clutch. Just because, I mean, when Dame's the type of player where it's like he needs to he can drop 50 every night. He has the ability to drop 50 every night. He doesn't have much defense. He doesn't have much playmaking. He's not going to go Russell Westbrook and rebound the ball, or Ben Simmons go rebound the ball. So you expect a lot of scoring from him, and he's done just exactly that, and is the reason why the Blazers are in the position they are. So I would probably pick him as the bubble MVP so far, and even more so if he can clutch it up within the next couple of days and get them in.
I think Jordan hit on every point that I would have hit about Damian Lillard being the MVP of the bubble, because he's the talk of the league right now. He's the guy making all the headlines that you read every morning. Oh, 50 plus points, 60 points that he's dropping. People like to see that. And I saw a tweet not too long ago. I don't want to go off again, but people are kind of forgetting that Steph Curry is still in the league, even though the Warriors aren't in the bubble.
Yeah.
Steph Curry is no doubt the best point guard in basketball right now. And people are forgetting that because he's not playing at the moment. They're seeing Damian Lillard in the headlines and not Steph Curry. And people are going to also argue that. I know Jordan would argue that Russell Westbrook is better than Damian Lillard, and I know he'll go to his grave. He'll go into the grave defending that argument. But that's just the way people feel. But given the circumstances that Lillard is lighting up the charts right now on the stats, and the Blazers are hot, you got to give the MVP to him.
Yeah, I also think you mentioned people. I've seen people on Twitter going all over the place with Damian Lillard, which is, I feel like he's been a little bit over.
I'm guessing what's going on Instagram, so don't.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think he's been overrated ever since his shot against OKC a little bit, but I'll divert from that because I'm not going to just go off about
That was
him.
a bad shot.
It really was. Paul George said it after the game too in an interview.
It's
a bad shot. He played good. Paul George defended him as well as he can.
Like, how the hell did he hit that shot?
I don't know. You really can't defend it. It's kind of like if he missed it, people would have been like, and they lost the game, people would have been like, what the fuck was that? Like, he would have gotten ripped for it, but he made it. So, but here's my deal. I think Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving are solidified 1-2 for me when they're both healthy. Solidified 1-2 for me. Russell Westbrook and Damian Lillard, I don't mind a debate with those two, but trying to debate that Damian Lillard's over Kyrie Irving, I think is a bit blasphemous, just because I think Kyrie Irving has proved multiple times, although his leadership with the Celtics was questionable and his playoff performance last year was questionable.
Yes.
He obviously has better playmaking skills than Damian Lillard. He's got better handles. I think he can, if not more so, stick with him in terms of scoring. I think they both have the ability to drop 50. And then defensively, they're both whatever. No one really talks about their defense. But I don't see the debate here that Kyrie Irving is down dropped to 3. I know and I think it's recency bias a bit, where we haven't seen Kyrie Irving or Steph Curry in a while. So people are like, well, whether it's that they don't know how they're going to come back from injury, or it's just that they kind of forgot about him. But I just saw that. I agree with you, Anthony. I saw it and I was like, what's happening? Like, why are people even the debate about Lillard over Curry is just ridiculous to me. I don't even know how someone can say that, but
yeah, I'm cool with that. I think for MVP of the bubble, Dame's definitely up there. I mean, T.J. Warren didn't do well his last game, but obviously, like, he just went off out of friggin' nowhere for the Pacers and really gave them a spark when they needed it. I'm going to give it to Devin Booker just because only undefeated team left in the bubble. I give a lot of credit to wins, obviously. Not to discredit anybody else, but, you know, the Suns weren't really a team. A lot of people were saying, why the hell are the Suns even in the bubble? Like, they don't belong.
yeah.
And now they're pushing for the 8th seed. So I got to give a lot of respect to that. So I'm going to go with Devin Booker.
I think it's got to be Book as well. I think it's got to be him. I generally, I think
You
that.
don't want to agree with Jordan. I got you.
That's not even it.
I took the Dame spot from him.
No, that's not even it, because
No.
I respect everything that Dame is doing right now. But, like, just the way that the Suns are playing, Devin Booker is finally leading that team to do more than score. He is leading them to success, which is something that the Suns haven't seen in a long time, and something that Devin Booker himself has never proven that he can do. We touched on that a couple months ago. Talking about he's not a leader. Suns will never go anywhere with him.
Yeah.
But he's proven everybody wrong, and I love that chip that he's got on his shoulder. He's playing very well. He's scoring. He's distributing, and he's not bad on the defensive side of the ball either. And I think it's got to be Book, just based on these 7 games we've already seen, 8 games that will be played. If you go just based on that, I think it's got to be him.
And I really think it's between those two.
It's between those two, no question. I don't think TJ has done enough.
And it's circumstantial too. Like, the Blazers were fighting for a playoff spot. The Suns were fighting for a playoff spot. The Pacers were in the middle of everything, and TJ Warren caught fire. It's like, it's kind of like you. I don't really want to give Warren too much credit. One thing I'll say about Booker, though, is that he definitely deserves more respect, I think, for what he's doing than Dame does, because I think people, at least me, at the beginning of the season, expected the Blazers to be pretty well into the playoffs and didn't expect the Suns to be anywhere near it. And now both of them are fighting for it. Whereas if Dame makes it, you're kind of like, okay, like, we kind of expect Damian Lillard to be in the playoffs. But now if Booker makes it, you're like, wow, the Suns actually proved everyone wrong this season and, you know, shot up and got the 8th seed. And whatever, it doesn't matter what they do to the Lakers. They'll probably get dismantled by the Lakers, the Suns, that is. But I think just a playoff berth for Booker would do so much for him and his career, just, you know, being able to go to the next tier that I think he isn't on yet.
And I want to piggyback off of what you said, Jordan. Just to kind of wrap this up about T.J. Warren. Yeah, they're in the playoffs already, and he just happened to have caught fire. Oh well, like when you got Damian Lillard with the Trailblazers and you got Devin Booker and the Suns, they're trying to get into the playoffs. It's that bottom half of the Western Conference is an absolute dogfight to grab that last spot. And I just personally, I respect it way more when you're going off like that and you know what's at stake, going for that playoff spot. But that's me. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I definitely we're going to wrap up the NBA here and get to the NHL. The playoffs have started. I think the biggest storyline is the quintuple. That's 5 for the intellects at home. A quintuple overtime
for the non-intellects.
Quintuple overtime thriller. I almost said trailer. My tongue's getting twisted.
It's the New York in you.
Yeah. But that game was absolutely wild. I definitely just felt bad for the players because I know they had to have been absolutely exhausted. Just one of those games that you didn't want to see anyone lose because they fought so hard to get to that point. They both deserved to win. It was like, all right, whatever. I was pulling for Columbus personally, but
me too.
It is what it is. That game made me think of, you guys would know, the marathon match for my wrestling guys between Nick Soriano and Dayton Fix, and who's number 1. Way long ago. I think they wrestled for a half hour, and it was just nonstop intensity. That's what that kind of brought me back to. But
Mm.
I definitely want to talk about that before we get into, the argument of all arguments.
I think that's the longest that you've ever spoken on hockey in the history of this podcast. Give it up for Anthony, everybody.
I did bring an analogy of wrestling into it, so I'm gonna knock
True.
a little bit of credit off myself there.
That's fair. That's fair.
Coffee.
I think me and Graham probably both agree. At least I was always like, so I caught the end of I didn't catch the beginning at all. I caught into the first overtime, had to go somewhere, checked my phone. I was out and I saw they were in the second overtime. I was like, oh shit, here we go. And then when I got back home, I turned the TV on. They're in the third overtime, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Like, what? This is gonna break a record. And then obviously we were only 3 out of 5 in, so I had a long hour to go. But I was like midway through or like a couple minutes into the fifth overtime, I was thinking, what are they gonna do with the Bruins game? Like, this thing's gonna start at 11:30. Like, they can't do this. And then I checked Twitter, and they moved it to 11 a.m. But yeah, that game was.
And the Bruins game ended up going to what, like
double overtime?
Yeah. Like 3 o'clock. It started at 11.
It's crazy.
That's for you.
Someone on NBC said this. They said before the bubble had started, the official games, the round robin, were going on, and they said, look, the NHL is going to run into problems if games start going to overtime. And it's ironic that the first East game that's played goes to 5 overtimes and is the third longest NHL game ever. But just talking about even 2 overtimes, like the Bruins Canes went today, that pushed the Caps game back an hour. And then once that pushes back an hour, if the Caps game goes to overtime, God forbid, then that pushes everything else back an hour. Like, it just keeps going and going. So it's funny how the problem that everyone was thinking about how what happens if teams don't finish their games happened on the first night. But yeah, it was interesting to watch in the fifth overtime just because it looked like a peewee game. Just everyone was so dead. You're talking 2 full games of hockey almost that they played last night. And then I think Columbus
over 2 full games. Because in the playoff hockey, overtimes are a full 20 minutes.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're true. Mm-hmm. That's facts. I think Korpisalo had 80
yeah,
saves.
Korpisalo had like 86 saves.
Yeah,
that's
that
unreal.
Is just insane. It sucks for Columbus, man. I can't imagine being a Columbus fan. And it's almost like you compare it to the Red Sox when they lost that 17 inning against the Dodgers, where you sit there and watch it for 4.5 hours or 5 hours, and then they lose, and you're like, "Fuck."
I fell asleep.
Yeah, that's a big one for Columbus because that just kills teams, and they already are gonna struggle to beat Tampa, and a win there would have been so big for momentum, but they just couldn't do it. It sucks.
At one point in the game, I think Tampa Bay had like 80-something shots on goal. And thankfully, my dad grew up playing hockey. That was his thing. So he explained like the importance of that, like how mind-boggling that is.
Yep.
So I want to get into this real quick. So
I'm gonna stop you right there, Graham. Jordan mentioned NBC sports or whatever. Shout out to John Forslund. How are you?
True.
Yes, sir.
Been doing great. Great call in the game.
Yes, absolutely.
Love to have back on.
Great Bergeron call.
Someday. So, first of all, talking about all those shots on goal. So, I may have mentioned it on the pod a couple times, but I work for a low-level pro hockey team in my hometown, and they call the Carolina Thunderbirds, and what is called the FPHL. They've got a couple teams in New York, Anthony. You might have heard of them. They got a team in Elmira and a team in Watertown, but I digress. It's upstate. More, yeah, it's upstate. It's upstate. So, our team is just unreal. Like, we won the chip last year. We were gonna win it again this year. Screw everyone in Danbury, Connecticut, who thinks otherwise. And we have played a game against a team from Battle Creek, Michigan, who was a brand new expansion team this year, and they were horrible. There was an article on ESPN about them. They went 1-43. They were so bad, but they had a goalie who was just absolutely insane. We put up 93 shots on goal in a 60-minute hockey game, and he saved like 90 of them.
He must have been like.
and then we traded for him like the next week. So that tells you all you need to know. Deeper into that story. So the owner of the team I work for is the same guy that owns the other team that we played against. The same guy owns 4 teams in the same league. So when he trades between the 2 teams, it's basically he traded for cash considerations, which basically means he moved money from his bank account to his other bank account in order.
Oh man, yeah, really? What the hell?
So
That
when
sounds
Graham's
illegal.
got probably rich or whatever. So when Graham is dead, we'll know why because he just revealed the secret to the whole world.
Please, Barry, please, God, don't kill me. Secondly, so I was at work all day yesterday. I went in at 9:45 in the morning, and I didn't get off until like 10:30. So all day I was dog tired. I was like, hey, at least I got the Canes game to listen to on the radio while I'm closing up shop on the way home, you know? And so then I'm checking my phone, like while I'm on break and everything. I'm like, wow, this Lightning game is really like going into overtime and all that kind of stuff. When I got the notification that the Canes game got moved to today, I was so depressed. I spent like 10 hours looking forward to listening to it, and just it was the biggest letdown ever. And then I got to listen to the tail end of the 4th overtime and the start of the 5th overtime, and I was just like, I've never seen anything like this. I don't know that anything like that will ever happen again. At least not in the next 20-30 years. But besides the point, you love to see the Islanders getting a win today, and
what a comeback.
Yeah, for real, 4 straight. The Avs went crazy today on Arizona. They scored 3 goals they scored 3 goals in like a minute and a half. It was 0-0 going into it.
They scored 2 in 10 seconds. That was the crazy stat line. They scored 2.
I was watching it. Yeah, it was unreal. Arizona got outshot like 36-11 in that game or something like that. And Kemper kept it close until like 5 minutes left, and then the defense just fell apart, and they let in 3 in like 2 minutes. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with the way that the first round of games in the first round has gone, including my Canes taking an L today. I'm happy with the result. Jordan, you can trash me all you want.
No, I'm not gonna trash you.
So I thought this week would be the good week to get the popcorn ready, like actually have popcorn.
Jordan's feeling generous and humble today.
I don't really need to. There's not much to say. I mean,
we took a loss. Yes, we took a loss. We're down 0-1.
Damn right.
Worse things have happened. I believe
like
we
a 2-0
lost.
Series.
Yes, exactly.
Or last year we swept you.
This is the time where Pat and I sign off for a little bit.
I believe last year we dropped.
You guys can go in. Actually, I'm gonna run to the bathroom. Actually, no respect, but
do what you gotta do.
I'll be right back.
He held up the bottle. No, he just.
We gotta get another one.
That's not what I thought you were referring to. Anyways, so. First of all, what I was saying is I think we dropped game 1 to Washington last year when we won that series in 7. I may be wrong. I don't really know. But as a Canes fan, I'm happy with the way the game played out. Because, first of all, last year in the 4-game series that we played in the Eastern Conference Finals, Rask was absolutely unbeatable. He went onto another plane of existence. And the fact that we put 3 goals on him in regulation says a lot in my mind. I think that our offense is deeper than it's been in a while. We've got some good young talent. And honestly, no matter how this series or this year goes for the Canes, I'm okay with it because I know that we're set up for long-term success. We've got Aho locked down, we've got Svechnikov locked down, and we've got Teravainen locked down. So all 3 of our top guys are good to stay for at least another 4 years. So I could really care less about what happens this year, knowing that we have, a long-term plan set up. But in terms of today's game alone, I know that, first of all, we put up goals on Rask, which was something that I was worried that we'd be able to do in the first place. Secondly, the Bruins went 0 for on the power play today, which was something that we were we didn't have a prayer of stopping the Bruins power play last season. And so the fact that our penalty kill has improved enough to keep them scoreless, let alone get a shorthanded goal today from Brock McGinn. By the way, that breakaway was filthy. The leg kick and everything. Oh my gosh, I felt like I was watching a Chell highlight. But and the fact that we were a team that swept us last year, dominated the regular season. The fact that we were able to take them to not one but two overtimes in a relatively high scoring game. I feel like that proves that not only that Canes can hang with the big boys, but that they deserve to be put up there in that tier themselves. And so, I don't know why we didn't have Justin Williams today. It said undisclosed reasoning.
Or Vatanen.
Yeah, or Vatanen. But we got, I think he was just a healthy scratch because we got Dougie Hamilton back today.
Okay.
Which is a big win because he's a Norris Trophy candidate when he's healthy, which he is now, thank God, after that broken leg. So really, I'm not too upset about the loss. A 1-0 deficit is surmountable. I'm really excited to see the matchup tomorrow night. I think that Reimer and Haddock is going to be a great goalie matchup because Reimer just absolutely played like a stud in his one game that he played against the Rangers. And Haddock is Haddock. He's a solid second goaltender, one of the better in the league. So I'm really excited to see what happens. I hope that we can get some good lines out there. And I think the series is going to be great one way or the other. I could really care less who wins. Obviously, being a Canes fan, I'd like to see them come out on top, but that's the end of my monologue for today.
I pretty much agree with you on everything you said. That the Bruins power play still hasn't performed well. Something that was consistent for us the entire year and arguably the best in the NHL this year is now non-existent, which is never good. It's never good when anyone's power play isn't on point. When you're not scoring, when you're 0 for, I think we're 0 for 9 now in the bubble, which is horrible. I agree with you saying, I'll go off at the double overtime point in that both teams played very well. Bruins played, I would say, obviously slightly better because they won the game, but in general, the statistics, I think they had more shots, they won more faceoffs. I think they
the Bruins had, I think they outshot the Canes 40-28, I think was the stat.
And even that, we had to beat you guys in double overtime. So I think that's a little scary as a Bruins fan of we had a great game and it still forced double overtime. But one thing I'll say is that the importance of the Bruins getting a win and not going down 0-1 in a series where in a bubble where they haven't won a game is so important. And if we would have lost that game, it's not even just you're down 0-1. It's that you guys have now lost every single game in the bubble when you were the best team by far in the NHL before the break. So, and I had said that before the overtime even started. I said they need to win this game because it's not even just going down 1-0. It's just for moral and other parts of the game mentally that you need to have a win under your belt. But one thing I'll say for the Bruins is that one of the main things that wasn't going well for us in the 3-game stretch with the round robin, Pastrnak, Marchand, Bergeron pretty much non-existent in all those games. I believe Pastrnak had a goal against Columbus in our exhibition game. Other than that, I don't believe any of them had a goal, and they might have had an assist here or there, but you're not looking for just assists from them. In the game today, Bergeron scores the game winner. Pastrnak had a goal. Marshy had, I believe, an assist on the last on the overtime winner. So, although our power play isn't working well and that Rask didn't look too well today, if you can get that perfection line back to where it is, where Marchand and Pastrnak are both MVP candidates, throughout the season, and that Bergeron is just that lockdown two-way guy that you need to, dish the puck. That's where I think we struggled last year against the Blues, and that's one of the reasons why I don't think we won the Cup. They kind of got swallowed up by, the bright lights. So I think that's a positive, but I agree with you in saying that it should be a good series. It should go 6 or 7. I don't see why it wouldn't go 6 or 7. And the one thing is for the Canes is that, this isn't. It's not like a home ice thing where it's like you don't want to lose in home ice. It's like everyone's playing in the same arena, so it's like you lose a game. It's like okay, we don't have to go win in Boston or something like that. It's not we don't have to go or for Boston you don't have to go win in Carolina. It's like
which is tough. It's tough.
Yeah. I think it's there's positive and negatives about it. Where if you're down in a series, going into Game 6 as the the team that's projected to win. You wouldn't be. You would obviously be going to go play Game 6 away, but in this instance, you're just playing at a neutral site. But obviously, yeah, the home crowd will help. But the game proved that the series is probably going to be the best one to watch, honestly, at least out of the East. And yeah, I still think it's not a guaranteed series. I never want to
for either team
saying for either team. It's going to be like I said, 6 or 7, and whichever team comes out on top has the ability to get to the cup. I mean,
easily.
If the Bruins beat the Canes, it shows that they're back in their mojo. If the Canes beat the Bruins, they just beat the best team theoretically in the NHL, and that they can now beat Washington, Tampa, whoever it may be. So it'll be interesting. I could see whichever team comes out of this series, I could see them easily getting to the finals.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that because for one reason, because if the Bruins win, obviously they have cup potential in the first place. The Canes, in order to beat the Bruins, their goaltending tandem has to be on the mark. Because when Mrazek and Reimer are on their A game, nobody can beat them. Absolutely nobody. And so they are the equivalent of a streaky shooter in the NBA. Like, they are either ice cold or hot. It's something that Forsland mentioned when we talked to him a couple months back. And so if they can be on that A game to get past Boston, I think Boston easily has the best top line of anybody in the East. The only reason that Philly is doing as well as they are right now is Carter Hart, who's playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
Out of his freaking mind.
Yeah.
He's got a 1 even goals against in the bubble through 3 games, which is unbelievable.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Got to get a Charger. Shit.
Uh-oh. Clip that.
Oh gosh.
Clip it. Every damn time, bro. I think I got enough power. Then we start rambling, and then it lasts longer.
So you guys are done rambling.
I do have one more thing to say, and then this will be it. I think that Sebastian Aho is the most underrated player in the NHL, and it's not even close. It's not even close because the dude, everybody's like, oh, he plays for the Canes. People kind of discredit the Hurricanes because they've just recently started being good, and they're not in a traditional hockey market. So they get a lot of hate for that. Don Cherry specifically. And so, the whole bunch of jerks moniker. But like, Aho was 6th in the NHL with goals. He led the league in shorthanders, which is an unreal stat. He had 4 shorthanded goals in an abbreviated season. Players are lucky if you get 1. But I just think that the way that he is able to produce both on the goal sheet and in the assist column, I think that, that he just does not get the respect that he deserves in terms of top players in the NHL right now.
Yeah,
so
I think it's fair. Last thing I want to say before we end it in the NHL conversation, Cassidy had an interview after the game, and someone from Boston's Globe or whatever asked him about, what's the double overtime? You got a game tomorrow. What's the deal with goaltending? And from what he said, I'm assuming Rask is going to be a net because he said that.
Really?
He said that. Well, double overtime usually you're looking at a lot of shots on net. Carolina didn't have too many. Rask wasn't going all over the place, draining himself. So there's that. And then he said, with a back-to-back, usually you're traveling or you're not getting good sleep because you're sleeping somewhere, but you're going to be here. You're going to be in the bubble. You're going into your hotel room and stuff. You're going to have, almost 24 hours to, over 24 hours to chill and relax. So I can see them just going with Rask again. Haddock did not look good in his game in the bubble. I think he allowed 4 goals. It might have been the game against Philly, actually. Yeah, because Rask was out with a broken finger. So Haddock didn't look good at all. I'm not sure if they just want to stay clear of him right now. If he had looked good, maybe they go to him. But coming off of 4 goals against is not what you want, especially in a pretty decisive game too. So I don't know what they're going to do. But from what I would predict that Rask is in that. Pretty surprisingly, I thought they were going to go with Haddock with the back-to-back. But yeah, we'll see, I guess.
Did not know about that. All right.
Yep. We'll see.
So that about wraps up for the NHL, and we're gonna get a little bit into the MLB here. Listen, I'm not gonna lie. When I first started watching baseball, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get into baseball. That was when the NBA was still doing scrimmages. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna watch baseball. But with basketball and hockey on, I'm starting to get a little more into hockey. It's definitely there we go. Things we like to see. It's definitely harder for me to watch baseball. I'm definitely following it. I know the Red Sox continue to lose. So Jordan, if you really, I know you're the only one that has really been following it as of late.
Yeah. So
you don't have anything to say.
I think Graham can help me out a little bit.
It's so hard for me to watch right now. Like the Red
is.
Sox are one of, I mean, like obviously I've got my favorite team in each of the 4 major sports, but the Red Sox are towards the top. And I just can't watch them right now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they're just. I haven't watched every game, which I usually don't watch every Red Sox game in like a season, just because it's like they're on every night and you have shit to do and you're not always gonna be able to watch them. But the mix of bad management by Renicky, poor play from Benintendi and Devers and the guys you expect to be able to step up in a shortened season, maybe get a playoff spot. The poor pitching that you knew was going to happen, but you didn't know was going to be this bad. It's just a shit show to watch. I mean, there's games where we have a 4-run lead and then our bullpen comes in and blows it in an inning, or we have, we score 7 runs, but the Rays score 8, or we have a starter, allow 5 runs in the first inning and there goes the game. It's just no one's playing outstanding. The guys that are playing outstanding are guys that we either just acquired, like Verdugo and Kevin Pillar, or they're guys like Christian Vasquez, where you just don't expect production from them, and you're not getting production from the guys you want. So it's just, I agree with Graham. It's just so hard to watch. It's just not there. No one thought it was going to be their year, but to just see the team that won the World Series and was arguably the best team ever in baseball, 2 years later now just collapse and be maybe the worst team in baseball. It's just so disheartening because it seems like it happens every 3 to 4 years. There's no consistency with the Red Sox. There's consistency with at least now, every Boston team. But ever since 2010, I would say, with the whole Bobby Valentine year and with the September collapse and everything, it's just constantly, we win a World Series. We go the worst to first to worst to first is like the joke that everyone says. We just can't keep consistency, and it sucks because you kind of know when the team starts playing bad that it's done, and then the next year you're like, oh, maybe we can make the World Series. But yeah, it's not even worth watching right now. They don't even look like they want to play. So we'll see what happens. That's all I got on it.
That's it. All right.
I only have one other thing on the MLB. Charlie Blackmon is batting 500 right now.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's like 32 for 64.
He's batting. I think I saw that his batting average is higher than the Cardinals' entire team.
Like at the Cardinals Brett Weisman.
Yeah.
That's my buddy. He's a Cards fan, and I despise the Cardinals just because of how obnoxiously passionate he is. He's a big Packers, Cardinals, Blues fan. So yeah, I hate all of those teams because of him. His name is Brett. Like, he's named after Brett Favre.
Okay.
So it's familial alignment. So, but yeah, things you love to see. Cardinals getting trashed in the stats column.
There we go. That's it for the MLB. I mean, if you want good MLB coverage, then we're not your place.
We're not. Yeah, I'm not the guy.
We're not going to sugarcoat it. Yeah. Really not a lot to talk about in the NFL, but I feel bad because the Patriots are the reason that Ride the Wave is really blown up because of the whole Spike King thing. Shout out to him. But there's really not a lot to talk about. I mean, training camp has started. I know we're starting to see Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham start to go at it in training camp in full pads. I think today was their first full pad practice. Cam Newton was out there dancing, doing his thing. That's all I really want to talk about that. But I think the biggest story came like an hour before we were about to shoot. The Cowboys just signed Everson Griffin to an already loaded Dallas front seven. So does that brings up the question, does Dallas – we know Dallas doesn't have the best overall defense in the league. We know that their secondary is extremely lacking ever since they lost the likes of Byron Jones. But do you think we can give them the title of the best front seven in football? Because Graham and I were discussing it earlier, and I think it's a tight race.
I would say, what you think the other guys are probably San Francisco in there?
Maybe Buffalo.
Them? Buffalo. It's tough. I mean,
because I can't personally think off the top of my head. Like, I'm drawing a blank on names right now. I know the Niners got guys like Bosa.
Fred Warner.
Alexander. Fred Warner.
I think they got Eric Armstead. Pat, you haven't talked in like half an hour. What do you think?
Sorry. I'm looking at I was going to say something about the defense. I'm looking at defensive stats right now just to see where the Cowboys are in terms of
well, let's see. Let's break it down. DeMarcus Lawrence, Everson Griffin you got now. You got not Jalen Brown. What's that guy's name?
Jalen Smith.
Jalen Smith. I knew it was Jalen Smith. Sean Lee still. I'm still on the Celtics. Leighton Vander Esch.
I'll say, they have one of the best front sevens in football, but, I never place any faith in the Cowboys just because they're the Cowboys. They could have the best roster in football and legitimately go 6-10 or, whatever, 13-3. They don't make any sense. So I'm hesitant to mint the Cowboys.
I agree with that because
the NFC East is literally just a shit show every year, and I don't want to talk about it at all if I don't have to because it makes me upset that every single year it's like just grow up.
A playoff spot is reserved for one of those teams.
And last year, you could argue that or at least on paper, the Cowboys had one of the best offenses in the league, if not the best, with Dak, Amari, Zeke, and a great offensive line, and then Gallup and the supporting cast and Randall Cobb. But they didn't perform like it. I mean, you'd expect them to get pretty far in the playoffs, and they obviously didn't.
A lot of their passing yards were kind of garbage time too when they're fighting from behind.
Yeah, once over Dak.
When you're down.
Yeah.
Well, now that my series, at least regular season, has finished up, we can talk about the fact that I think the Cowboys are going to go 13-3 this year. I'm really high on them all around. I think
make it a break year for Dak Prescott.
Absolutely.
You want your money, earn it.
Yeah.
Show us. That's what Jerry Jones should literally say to him. You want the 40 mil. How much does he want? 40 million? 50 million?
50 mil.
Yeah,
40
more
than he's worth.
You want 50 million? Prove to me that you're worth $50 million. That's what Jerry Jones should say straight up. Is he going to? No, because he's Jerry Jones. He's Jerry Jones. That's it. That's all I have to say.
So here's the thing, Pat. Historically, you're right. Historically, in the last decade or two, having faith in the Cowboys has been largely misplaced historically. But my main reasoning for finally being able to place faith in my opinion about the Cowboys having success is the fact that they got rid of Jason Garrett. They don't have that bimbo at the front anymore making decisions that blow games for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mike McCarthy, he won a Super Bowl, but he made mistakes in Green Bay as well. I'm not going to say that he's, one of the best head coaches in the NFL, but I think that he's going to be better for the Cowboys than Jason Garrett ever was. And I think that he's going to be a much needed face. It's more about the morale of the team, in my opinion, and the front office than it is about what he's actually doing, because everybody in the Cowboys organization and everybody in the Cowboys fan base, they knew that Jason Garrett was a liability at the head coaching position, but Jerry just never got around to letting him go, So I think that more than anything, it was just a change of pace that was needed. And I think that when you put that on top of the fact that they have one of the top 5 running backs in football without question, one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, one of the top 10 wide receivers in the league, and then you also have CeeDee Lamb, Blake Jarwin, Michael Gallup, one of the top front sevens in the NFL. I'd place them probably second or third. I think San Francisco, you got to dethrone them first, but them and Buffalo are neck and neck. The Cowboys need cornerback help in a pretty bad way, but their safety situation is looking pretty good. I'm pretty sure they drafted Grant Delpit out of LSU. I'm pretty sure that's who they drafted. I know they drafted one of the top safeties, and they signed HaHa Clinton-Dix. So their safety situation is set. All they need is a solid cornerback tandem, and they'll be good to go. I love their roster this year, and I think that with the NFC East being as bad as it is, minus Philadelphia, who seems like they can win 10 games with a bunch of no names plus Carson Wentz, you know,
Yeah.
I think that they can run through it.
I think it's a very good point. I won't disagree with anything you said there for sure. They have all the talent to go to the Super Bowl easily.
Yep.
I'm going to take a little bit of a hot take here. So you bring up Jason Garrett before, right? How he's been the thorn breaking down the Cowboys from the inside. He's been tearing them apart from the inside. It wasn't anybody on the team. It was him. It was the core foundation. So he is now the offensive coordinator of the Giants. And you have such a good defense in the Cowboys. So I wouldn't be – and Jason Garrett knows this defense like the back of his hand. I mean, obviously he doesn't know the guys like that because he only coached guys like Leighton Vander Esch for how many years and Jalen Smith. But I wouldn't be surprised if in their matchup the Giants give them a really hard time. I think that can be a very exciting game. And yeah, you might think about that right now and laugh. It's the Giants. What star power do they have besides Saquon Barkley? Or what talent do they have besides Saquon Barkley in that matter? But for some reason, every year or every few years or so, the Jets give us a hard time. And we know the Dolphins give us a hard time. It's that divisional rivalry that just makes everything so much better. It's like the icing on the cake. You got two good teams, division rival, that's set. You're set. Like Tampa Bay and New Orleans week 1. That's going to be probably the most entertaining game. That's probably going to be one of the most entertaining games of the year. Just because it's week 1 and we don't know how long the NFL season is going to last. And because of the fact that it's Tom Brady, you got everything that goes into it. And now you're going to have Jason Garrett on the enemy side now, in the enemy trenches, coaching the offense and calling the offensive plays against a stellar Dallas Cowboys defense. So I think that's an interesting storyline going into that matchup.
Absolutely.
I thought they would be playing because I know I think week 1 I thought it was a tradition that the Giants and Cowboys play on Sunday night, but they're not. I don't remember who the Giants are playing, but the Cowboys are playing the Rams. The Cowboys are playing the Rams on Sunday night to open the season, but I don't want to get into Cowboys primetime games right now.
I'm going to do it, Anthony. I hate it. I hate it so much.
As does America. Graham speaks for America.
Thank you. Both Cowboys-Eagles games are always nationally televised every year. Both of them are always nationally televised. And at least one of the two games between them and the Giants and them and the Redskins is always primetime.
I wouldn't say the Redskins.
You can't say that. I thought you were making a Washington football team joke, Anthony.
Oh, my bad.
No, but you can't really say that because I don't think the Redskins get any primetime.
But it's the fact that it's Cowboys and Washington. It's the fact that it's Dallas, Washington. And thank you for checking me on that, Pat. It is now. It's the Cowboys and football team rivalry.
Yeah.
So I might have to get a Washington football team hoodie just for the memorabilia.
Oh my God.
But you bring up, before we get into the next segment here, you bring up Cowboys-Eagles. I feel like that's always one of the most entertaining matchups in the last 5 years. Because who has it been, especially at the end of the season? You don't want that too early on primetime, but those two are always in a dog. I mean, they're both dog shit, so they're in a dog fight for that NFC East championship, trying to get that 4 seed every year. It's always the 4 seed in the NFC East. It's kind of stupid, but it's just two teams that want that playoff spot, regardless of how bad they are, what their reputation is. It's two teams, and you're just going to see who wants it more. I always feel like that late Week 16 or Week 17 game, snowy night at the Link, between the Cowboys and Eagles. It's always fun to watch. I always stay after that game.
Yeah.
So that's my argument pro Cowboys primetime. Yeah. But everything else, I hate it.
Yeah. Anthony, you were talking about the Giants earlier. Something I want to say is Daniel Jones. I don't know if you guys saw that photo of him, but he looks fucking huge. Like he's
whoa.
Like big, like muscle.
Yoked.
Like his legs. He's been on the Saquon grind. His quads are popping out of his shorts. He looks like, you know how Josh Allen looks good in shorts?
He doesn't look like a Duke kid anymore.
No, he looks like, yeah, exactly. He looks like he went to like an actual like football.
An actual school, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll say that for Daniel Jones is that he doesn't look like a whatever tool anymore.
All my
Well,
homies hate Duke.
Yeah, all my homies.
Well, if that wraps it up for the NFL, I'm going to get into wrestling real quick. I know last week I said that I'm really not watching the product. I'm trying a lot more now. Like, I was definitely invested this past Monday. Randy Orton's doing his thing. I think that's probably the most interesting storyline. Well, people will say it's the most interesting storyline right now in the entire product, but I think the Fiends, that whole storyline with Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman is probably the best thing right now. Like, Randy Orton's kicking in 60-year-old man heads. Like, he just kicked the head in of Ric Flair. Like, come on. And I know that I wasn't watching wrestling back in 2005 when Randy Orton was originally doing the Legend Killer thing. And I know how much people loved that when he was feuding with The Undertaker back then. He was supposed to break the streak, not Brock Lesnar. I wish Randy Orton did. But it's definitely something interesting to watch. Everything else is really kind of boring. Not as I'm more interested in it. I think the storyline for the 8 spot is more interesting than anything that WWE's really got going on right now. But I just put out an article about why The Fiend is the next big thing for pro wrestling. If they don't book him, then I don't really want to get into that, but I'm going to kind of plug that there. Bray Wyatt is just an absolute genius when it comes to everything. When in terms of professional wrestling, his ability in the ring, his mystique, and being on the mic, his ability to tell a story is just fantastic. And I know that I wasn't high on him way back in the day when he debuted because I was like 10 or 11. I was a big John Cena guy, as every 10 or 11-year-old that watched wrestling was. And I didn't see. Clip that. But definitely, looking back on it, I know it wasn't the right decision to put Bray Wyatt under Cena at WrestleMania 30. But you can't go back in the past. I'm a wiser man now. I know that Bray Wyatt's the future. He could be the next Undertaker. That's my big hot take. And you guys know how high I was on the Undertaker. So that's really it. Let's get into our lists.
Yeah. So wait, real quick.
It's
While we're still on the topic of John Cena, I want one of you to text me real quick. One of you text me real quick.
I'm gonna do it
Text
first.
you what?
God.
Just anything. I don't care.
It's going to be the John Cena theme song.
And his name is John. Yep. I'm not an idiot. Come on.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, now there goes our copyright. We're gonna get flagged for that.
So
Yeah.
okay, so I have a story.
Demonetized.
I have a story. So, as most people in the Southeast do when they're in middle school, I took an 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C. And one of the spots that one of the spots that we visited was the Arlington National Cemetery. It's a pretty cool place. It is probably the biggest graveyard you'll ever see in your life. But one of the coolest spots is the Eternal Flame, where John F. Kennedy is buried, right? So we pull up on the flame, and we're just kind of standing there. I could have worded that so much better.
Yeah.
Pull up on the
We
flame.
walk up to
Bro,
the flame.
saw,
We approach the flame.
I saw Anthony's
Pull
face.
up
And
on
I started dying.
Anyway, so we go up, and one of my friends who didn't go on the trip thought it would be a great idea to text me in the middle of our field trip. So I'm standing at the Eternal Flame at John F. Kennedy's grave, and all you hear is the John Cena theme song.
Oh my god.
Oh no. That's
I
the worst
cried. I
Oh,
cried.
man.
Yeah.
That's got to be fucking. I'd be out of there. I'd book it out of there.
Yeah, I was see you later.
Yep.
My face was the color of Pat's shirt, dude. Like, it was so bad. For those of you that are
That
listening
sucks.
on Apple and Spotify, it's like blood red.
Yeah, it's a very red shirt.
So
So that's
All right.
Graham's final
Anecdote.
wrestling segment in between list story time there. You're very welcome for that, those listening at home. But this week's list, we tried getting in some suggestions, but I'm not going to lie, you guys, really didn't help us out all that much.
wait, real quick, while we're on the topic of the story responses. So we didn't really get many. Y'all were kind of lacking that one.
We're not happy.
NBA player Travion Graham plays for the Hawks right now. Did respond. So He didn't respond with a list suggestion, but I've reached out to him on Instagram. Hasn't. Oh, I need to turn my ringer back off. Oops.
Wait, he responded to what?
He put something in the question box.
And it wasn't a list?
No, he just put like an emoji. But he's
What?
Thanks.
but he's
How did he
So-
find? That's weird.
I don't know, dude. I don't know. But
Nah, that's
Travion
cool.
Graham is it's pretty sick. And if he's listening, which I doubt he is because he hasn't responded to me on Instagram yet. But if you're listening, please, Travion, come on the pod. We would love to have you.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
I wonder how could he have found it?
Well, I think I've seen him in the story views on Ride the Wave a couple of times. So
Oh, yeah.
Wait, was this on the New Guys podcast?
no, this was on the Ride the
account?
Wave page.
Okay.
Come on, we're not that big yet. Relax.
Well, you never know. Just wanted to confirm.
And before we get into I'll save it for closing thoughts. Actually, now that I think about it, I want to get this moving. This week, since you guys gave us no list suggestions, we are very disappointed. I saw a YouTube video earlier today. Top 10 NBA ringless players to never win an NBA championship. I'm like, screw it, we'll do a list. I didn't watch the video. I just saw it. I'm like, that's the next idea right there. We've been doing football for the last few weeks, so let's throw the NBA back in there. So, top 10 ringless players.
Before we start, okay, we're doing not just retired players, but some active players that have played in the NBA since 2008. We're gonna do 12 years, right? That was what we decided. All right. So before anyone doesn't listen to us, I know people are gonna do
Can we
this.
do 11 years?
What?
Can we do 11 years?
That would be
I'm-
shorter. So yes, 11
I'm-
years would be included in 12 seasons.
Oh,
Oh,
they've been at least 12 seasons. So like they had to play.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. Okay, yeah, you're right. Now I'm the idiot. Yeah, you're right. We can do 11. I don't care.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
okay, then that
Flip
probably
that. Now
means
I'm
you
the
have
idiot.
someone who I was just gonna say don't rip us apart for not having him in the top 10.
Wait, something
So-
I want to say before.
Let's just do
Jordan
10.
says
Let's do
something he has
10.
to say.
It doesn't matter because
It doesn't really matter at this point. I don't
Okay,
think
all
anyone been below that one person is going to be on there. But so I just looked up Travion Graham, and he went to a high school. It's called St. Mary's Riken High School in Maryland, and that high school was founded by the Zavarian brothers, and I went to Zavarian Brothers High School, so we were linked through that. It's kind of weird that you mentioned that, and then we just happened to go to like the same high school, like people that are
that's so far off.
No.
I don't think it is. I think that's a pretty sick
No, 'cause
connection.
there's
Matt,
only
get
like
it-
there's only
make
like
it happen.
12 of those schools, I think, in like the
Yeah.
U.S. So
that's sick.
Yep.
yeah, kind of interesting.
Pretty
But
dope.
All right, so we're gonna do.
I thought it was like a coincidence, so weird coincidence that.
All right, so we're gonna go honorable mentions all around, then 10 to 6 all around, and then
Of
5 to
course,
1 all
of
around.
course.
Okay. So who wants to start it off this week?
Ooh, I want to go.
Okay.
Go for
I don't
it.
have any honorable mentions.
Well, that was just okay.
Disappointing. I don't know how you don't, because there are like 12
disappointing.
people that I think deserve. to
Yeah,
go.
I think there's
I'll throw one out there. I'll throw Reggie Miller out there.
okay.
That's it.
All right. Who's up next? Who wants to go?
I'll go. I also have Reggie Miller, and I'm about to get shredded by Jordan
I,
for this.
I proved them
No,
wrong on the
I know who
Reggie
you're
Miller
gonna say.
argument. I proved them wrong on the
No,
Reggie
you don't
Miller.
know who I'm gonna say, Jordan. Who do you think I'm
Why?
gonna say?
Westbrook.
No,
Okay.
I don't think he even deserves an honorable mention. No, I'm gonna say Patrick Ewing.
Honorable mention.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
Okay, I can see the argument.
I actually don't. I'm not actually gonna like rip you apart.
I'm not upset.
It's really not that hard of a take, honestly.
Okay.
I'm gonna go next. I have 3
yeah, go
honorable
ahead.
mentions. The guy that just missed out on for me, Reggie Miller. I know Graham and I were talking about it earlier. Him and I were arguing over my 10 spot. He was like, "Oh no," and then I actually proved him wrong on an NBA argument.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I'm
It
kind
did
of
happen. Reggie Miller does not have the numbers that I thought he did. I remember him as
I
like
know,
this
right?
big
Yeah.
90s icon. Like I thought he was like just absolutely a stud. He only had 5 All-Star games in his entire
Yeah.
career.
He really wasn't.
He didn't have the career that I thought he did. I know that he was lights out from beyond the arc, but like that's about it.
hmm And then my other 2 honorable mentions, I got Dikembe Mutombo and Vince Carter.
Respectable.
This
Vince
is
Carter's
tough. My honorable mentions in my 10 spot. It was pretty tough to who should I include the 10 spot, but I decided I've got 3 honorable mentions. Westbrook, gotta get my guy in there. Tracy McGrady,
Mm-hmm.
and
Another good one.
Reggie Miller as well was one of mine. So I'll throw those three in there. But it was tough. I think this list was pretty tough, just because there are a lot of guys deserving of recognition for their career, but not winning a ring. So
Yeah.
For sure.
all right, Pat.
All right.
So,
Number 10. I don't know if I'm going to get heat for this one. I have Allen Iverson at 10.
wow. Okay.
I'll go to war about that one. I've got Dominique Wilkins at 9, Steve Nash at 8, Ewing at 7, and Chris Paul at 6.
I have a much bigger problem with Steve Nash being that low than I do with
Actually,
Allen Iverson being that low.
Let's swap Steve Nash and Chris Paul. So
I can work with that.
Chris Paul at 8 and Steve Nash at 6, because there's no reason for me to have Chris Paul above Steve Nash.
Got some sense in you now. All right. I believe that makes it my turn. I've got at number 10. I have Pistol Pete Maravich.
Ooh,
that's a good one. That was a good honorable. I forgot to mention him. Yeah.
Number 9, I've got Dominique, like Pat. Number 8, I have Elgin Baylor.
Yep.
Graham just got something.
Walked in on, baby. Mid list.
Sorry, where was I? 8.
Elgin Baylor. You just said Elgin.
Yeah.
Baylor.
Yeah, I've got Baylor at 8. Number 7, I've got the Iceman, George Gervin.
Mhm.
Oh,
And number 6, I have CP3.
I
Okay.
can respect that. All right, number 10, I got Patrick Ewing. I switched it up a little bit now that I'm thinking about it. Number 9, I got Dominique. And then at 8, I have Chris Paul. I know Graham's going to fight me. Shit, there goes my AirPods. Graham's going to fight me on that till the day I die. And then, what am I at? 8, 7, I got George Gervin. And then I got 6, Elgin Baylor.
I think that because I have actually I'll let Jordan go first.
All right. So, I forgot to mention someone else. James Harden is going to be an honorable mention for me. He just missed my 10 spot because I think he's going to be remembered as one of the most prolific scorers ever. So, if he doesn't win a ring, then that's pretty embarrassing. But he should also be like recognized for it. All right. So 10, I have Patrick Ewing. 9, I have Steve Nash. 8, I have CP. 7, I have George Gervin. And then 6, I have AI.
Graham's upset.
Can I just read this crazy stat about Elgin Baylor real quick? So I was doing research.
I want to hear. All right, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was doing research for this list, and it said that Baylor's 0-8 in the finals.
Yeah,
7 of those losses came to the Celtics.
Yep.
Shout out to Bill Russell. 12-time All-Star, 4th-time
Yep.
scoring champ. But the season that he retired a few games into the season that they eventually won the championship.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was mind-blowing. If he stuck around, he wouldn't have even been on the list. And Reggie Miller could have been on my list, but, Elgin Baylor had other plans.
Interestingly enough, Elgin Baylor retired like in November of like the early 70s, and the Lakers went on to win that finals the year after. Yeah.
Anthony.
Oh,
No,
did you?
that season
Sorry, you
Yeah.
cut out. You cut out, and I was hoping you didn't.
Oh, my
say
fault.
that.
No worries.
No. It's probably me. All right, Graham. What do you have for me here? Your boy CP wasn't one. Sorry.
The Steve Nash disrespect is unreal.
Why? Wait. In what way? What do you have in top 5?
I didn't name him in my bottom 5.
I don't know if it's correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's as much like about placement on the list as much as it is you have Chris Paul over him.
Yeah, that
I have
too.
CP over him.
CP3 is he deserves to be on this list. First of all, I think that you should have 4 point guards on this list. I think that you should have 4 of them, and the 4 that you have should be the very same for everybody. I think that CP3 no doubt deserves a spot on this list, but he is the 4th of the 4 to me.
Really?
No,
Yes.
I disagree. I think.
Wait, Graham, what was your 6 through 10 or 10, whatever?
I have Maravich, Dominique, Baylor, Gervin, CP3.
Wow, you have 3 point guards in the top.
I do have 3 point guards in my top 5.
Look, Steve Nash's MVPs are the most overrated MVPs in NBA history,
I'll give you
without a
that.
doubt, and it's not even
I
close.
think they're overrated
Yeah.
because I think.
If they're overrated, dude, look at this. Look at
His numbers
Nash.
are really there.
The only reason Nash won was because the Suns were the best team in the league, I believe, both years. His stats weren't. He averaged less than 20 points both those seasons.
Wait, but I think that argument saying the only reason he won is because he was on the best team in the league. I think that's like.
But he was the best player on the best team.
Sure,
in
that's
the
fair.
league.
If you want to define MVP as that, it's fine. But that's not how MVP is always defined.
Well, okay. I feel like that's how the leagues always define it. I agree that the MVP should be given to the player who is truly the most valuable. I agree with that logic. If you're going to call it the most valuable player award, you should give it to the player who is truly the most valuable. Similarly, in the way that if you are going to call it the most improved player award, you should give it to the player who is truly the most improved. Devontae Graham slept on. We talked about that earlier, Jordan. I'm not going to get into it. But I agree. Steve Nash's MVPs are overrated, but that does not negate the fact that he was absolutely dominant at the point guard position for his entire.
I never said he wasn't. That's why he's in my top 10.
But he should be above. He should be above Chris Paul, and I'm a Chris Paul fan. I mentioned it last week.
The offensive numbers between those two are very similar. Chris Paul gets the edge in offense. He statistically gets the edge in offense. Obviously, Steve Nash is a better passer than Chris Paul, even though Chris Paul is one of the most underrated passers ever.
Better shooter too.
Yeah, you're right. He is a better shooter. Chris Paul on the defensive end is miles better than Steve Nash. Chris Paul's I believe, nine-time All-Defense, 6-time steal champ.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Steve Nash was a horrible defender. He was just awful. I mean, he's like modern-day Harden. I mean, he just didn't play defense.
That's Harden.
That's fine. Okay. But, yeah, Harden has gotten better. You're right. But, again, I just think the gap between defense between those two is extraordinary. Chris Paul beats him in offense in terms of just scoring ability, not efficiency, just scoring ability. And then Nash gets him in passing and efficiency. And then it comes down to, for me, Nash's MVPs. I don't think he was as deserving as those MVPs as some people think he was. The second MVP he won, Kobe Bryant averaged 35 that year, and I believe got the Lakers to somewhere around the 6 or 7 seed. If you want to talk about most valuable, if Kobe leaves that team, the Lakers are one of the worst teams in the league because he's averaging 35.
Jordan, I'm sorry, but I hate that argument because that's like.
Why? You just made that argument.
Who, me?
You just said that. Well, you can't say that because he's on the best team. That's why he's carrying that team to the best record in the league.
That's like, I don't know. You could say that about a lot of teams. Like, oh, take Brady off the Patriots and they suck, so he should be most valuable every year. Or take LeBron.
If you're averaging 35 points, which back then hadn't been done since Michael Jordan, I think you're deserving of the MVP.
Especially back then, traditionally, so Steve Nash transformed that Suns team in 1 year from like a 20-win team to the best team in the league wins-wise in 1 year. So, I mean, I think if you're looking at most valuable in terms of transforming an entire team, I think Steve Nash definitely deserves that recognition. And in his second year, MVP averaged 19 points. He averaged 10.5 assists. He shot 50, 90.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'm just saying. Shaq during Nash's first MVP season, I believe averaged 19 and 13. Who should have been deserving of the MVP. Kobe the next year averages 35. He doesn't get it. LeBron James that same year was averaging near 30. He didn't get the MVP. Nash got it over him. I think the argument that the best player or the best team's best player should get the MVP isn't valid because Russell Westbrook, when he carried the OKC Thunder in 2017 to a 7 seed, dropped 30, 11, and 11, was given the MVP and really was the unanimous MVP.
But I mean, that was a big narrative shift though back then because before that, historically, it's always gone the best player, best team. Even the year before.
I don't think that's fair. Because
you could just look historically. I'm just saying historically, it's always gone before him. It had always gone to the best player on the best team, like 99% of the time. Look at Derrick Rose. There's the argument people make with LeBron should have gotten it over Derrick Rose. When LeBron really didn't even finish at second, it was Dwight Howard. But like historically, it's always been best player, best team, which I'm fine with.
So you think LeBron should, if the Lakers had a better record than the Bucks by a game and a half or 2 games, you think that LeBron should have gotten it over Giannis if they kept the same numbers?
Well, not necessarily, because I think
Well, then
Westbrook.
you don't agree with what you're saying. Then
I think Westbrook deserved it, but I'm saying back then that was very much the way it went. So I think saying that, just give the award to the guy who, was in the 7th seed over Steve Nash, who had the best team in the league, one of the best offenses the league had ever seen at the time. I think it's completely discrediting him.
I'm not saying back then that if you can ask Shaquille O'Neal and he knows that he should have gotten more MVPs in his career than just the one that he has.
Yeah.
And I think that is in itself ridiculous. The guy on the Magic averaged 30 and 15 and didn't win the MVP. Is that because he wasn't the best player on the best team? I don't think that's fair to say because of the surrounding cast that you have. Maybe it may not be as strong as some other guys. Therefore, you're not qualified to win MVP. I don't think is fair. I'm not just saying you're saying that. I'm saying that the NBA narrative that's been carried around the league of well, we're just going to – I think it was started with Michael Jordan just because he was obviously the best player in the league and his team was always up there as well. But I don't think it's fair to rate guys on just their record because in that case, Devin Booker, a lot of the common guys, Trae Young, all those guys right now shouldn't really be rated highly at all just because they can't do anything with their team.
Well, but I mean, from your point of view, those guys should be rated among the highest in the league when they put up eye-popping numbers, even though
Kobe put up 35.
I think that you should reward winning over stats any day of the week, personally. Whether it's scoring.
I think that's the disagreement.
Yeah.
It's just that's where Nash and.
There's the difference of if you have Russell Westbrook obviously averaging a triple-double and you have some guy averaging 20 and 5 and if you have a Steph Curry first-year MVP where he averaged 23, 6 and 5, that's very. That probably really shouldn't even be an MVP season if you go by standards of statistics, but it's the fact that he led the best team in the league. So I think it really depends also on a multitude of things. You can't really boil it down to just one on any given year.
Yeah, I just think that if you had 4 or 5 players that were able to average 15 to 20 points, they were all averaging 18, but you had a starting 5 that was able to, for example, if the Celtics got to the best record in the NBA,
yeah,
and Jason Tatum was averaging 18.5 to 19 points, I wouldn't automatically say Jason Tatum deserves MVP because he's the best player on the Celtics. If Giannis was averaging 35 and 12 and he was the 2nd seed, then he deserves.
I'd agree with that. For sure.
Or if Giannis was carrying a bum ass Bucks team with no Middleton to the 6 or 5 seed and he was averaging 35 and 12. Then I'm giving him the MVP. That's where I think Kobe deserved the MVP.
I don't think, but I think definitely.
Yeah.
I want to kind of interview here. I was kind of listening the whole time, and Jordan kind of read my mind when it came to Tatum and the Celtics.
Yeah.
When you think of a most valuable player, that's going to be the guy who's going to take a team like the Celtics, the 3 seed in the East, not really much expectations, and bring them to the next level.
Yeah.
I'm expecting a lot out of the Celtics. I'm expecting a finals appearance, but the rest of the league and the rest of the nation isn't expecting a lot out of the Celtics. They're just going to think it's going to be a Bucks Raptors Eastern Conference Finals, and then the Bucks going to the finals. But if Jason Tatum was out there putting up 35 like Kobe did, and he was just putting the Celtics at that one spot, and they were the favorite in the East, would you give Jason Tatum the MVP because he's on the best team in the league and he's putting up those numbers?
Yeah.
If he's averaging 35, yeah, but if he's a 7th seed, I think it's a different story. When James Harden averages 36 points and he loses to Giannis, even though he's averaging 36 points and 8 assists a game,
To me, the most valuable player should be defined as you can take that player, put him on any of the NBA teams in the entire league, and he would drastically improve to the highest extent that team to their highest potential out of any players in the league. To me, if you put Kobe Bryant on any team in the NBA, Celtics, Magic, whoever, with Dwight Howard, whoever you want to put it on, he would take that team to higher ceiling than Steve Nash would have. That's how I view it.
So then it should go to the best player every year then.
Agreed.
So technically then it would probably go to LeBron every single year.
Oh, I'm one of the people who thinks that LeBron should have won at least 3 or 4 more MVPs than he actually should have.
Okay.
So and it's not just like LeBron last year. I don't think he showed that he couldn't bring that Lakers team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Kobe showed he could bring the Lakers team to the playoffs back then. Therefore, I think that him being put on any other team would drastically improve it, other than a point guard who can just pass the ball.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
I'm done.
So here's my thing. Jordan.
Yep.
I still think you have Steve Nash too low. I still think that you
That's
had
fine.
him at what, 9?
No, I had him at hold on. I had Ewing at 10. Yeah, 9.
Okay.
No. Yeah, 9. You're right.
I still think 9 is too low, but
That's fine.
your argument has caused me to go and do some stat research, just to compare. I'm not spoiling anything. John Stockton deserves to be in the top 3 for all of our lists.
Sure.
So I think he's far and away the number 1 point guard, and that doesn't have a ring in the history of basketball.
Yeah.
But comparing the other 3 that I have, Steve Nash's numbers are considerably the worst out of the 3 of the other ones that I'm considering. And I did not realize that, because I remember Steve Nash as being a human highlight reel. When you look at his career numbers, they don't compare. So I am bumping Nash down from where I had him to number 6.
We were on the same wavelength there,
Mm.
because I think I thought the same thing. I'm like, now that I think about it, I was looking at Nash's numbers earlier, as opposed to everyone I had higher than him, and he just didn't really match up.
And it's really not about. If you want to rate Nash highly, that's fine. I just hate when people are if your argument would be, well, CP didn't win 2 MVPs. I hate that argument, because it's
that's stupid. That's why I didn't make that argument.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. And it's like, if you want to put Nash above him, like, I'm not going to be like, well, you're like, Nash is a great player. No, he's in all of our top 10s for a reason. He's one of the best ever to not win a ring. He's arguably, behind Stockton and maybe CP, he's the best passer ever. Like, there was no player like Steve Nash. It's just a matter of what do you value most when you're ranking players, which is what we always obviously end up arguing about.
Yeah.
That seems to always come up. All right, we all give our. That was a long ass argument.
That was a long segment.
And you know what? I don't like you guys, because now I'm looking at the stats and I kind of feel like Jordan's right. Because Chris Paul has way more steals, generally more assists over his career, more.
If you don't like us, Spencer is 1 call away, buddy.
Hey.
It's a 1 call away.
Let's not get too bold here, Anthony. All right.
Shout out Spencer.
For real.
Shout out to Spencer.
All
I
right.
haven't talked to that kid in so long.
Steve Nash is not as good as Chris Paul.
All right, so Pat, you want to take it from 5 to 1?
Yeah, I'm kind of have my tail between my legs, but I'll read. 5, I have James Harden.
Wow.
4, I have Elgin Baylor. 3, I got Charles Barkley. 2, I have John Stockton. 1, I have Karl Malone.
Okay, at least you have Stockton and Malone together. Because when I ranked those 2, I wanted to separate them between spots, but I couldn't. You can't. You literally can't.
That's fair.
But,
Yeah. That's what I got.
That is
All right.
quite possibly the most whacked up top 5 I have heard in a long time.
You think so?
I don't think so.
Absolutely.
I think.
Who's your 4? Who's your 4?
Elgin
Baylor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all.
I don't have a problem with Baylor being there, but
It's hard that.
I think that it's so hard for me to judge Harden's whole career compared to all of these other guys, simply because he's still in the midst of it. Like,
Yeah.
that alone is is enough for me to keep him off of my list. And so, but if James Harden were to retire tomorrow, and we have retrospect on his career, looking at his career stat lines and things like that, then I might be singing a different song. But just right now, with him still being an active player and one of the top 10 guys in the NBA, I just can't say that he's one of the top 10 all time to never win a ring.
My reasoning is, I think his peak is higher than any of the peaks of the guys below him. And
We're gonna have a lot of people angry about that.
We're in his peak right. I don't really know if you can argue that.
I think I think you can make an argument that AI, his peak may have been higher.
Yeah.
And that AI was just struck with having the Shaq Kobe Lakers in his way he had to face them in the finals and he only won one game, but
but
you can say the same thing about Harden and the Warriors.
Yeah, that's
well,
fair.
but
I would just say I think you can make an argument about AI maybe with Harden.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, with AI as well, he only made the finals once. So the Shaq Kobe Lakers argument doesn't really hold true with that.
No,
he didn't
but
even make it out of the East but
the
one
Sixers
time.
team that he had with him
was
horrible.
terrible. Yeah,
Well, so,
I'll give you that.
Harden's supporting cast was better.
True.
Over the years.
So I'll go ahead and get into my top 5. I now have CP3 at number 5 rather than number 6.
Okay.
I had Nash at 4. I bumped him down to 6. I have AI at 4 now. I have Karl Malone at 3, Stockton at 2, and Chuck at 1.
So, wow. Yeah,
now, you talk about Malone and Stockton. I feel like that can flip flop.
It's really either. The reason that I put
back to back.
Flip flop in terms of who's above who.
I see that reasoning simply because their careers panned out similarly in terms of team success. However, Stockton is both the all-time leader in steals and assists.
It's not even close either.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't see how you can put. I mean, I guess because they played on the same team at the same time, they had similar playoff resumes, all that kind of stuff. I get it, but in terms of statistical dominance, Stockton was unreal.
Yeah. So I have going into my top 5. I'm not sure if I may have missed it. I don't know if you guys mentioned this guy. Dominique Wilkins, I have at 5.
I have him
at 9.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's good because I didn't want to go back because I wanted to talk about Wilkins for a little bit.
Yeah. I have him at 5. I have Baylor at 4. I have Stock at 3, Barkley at 2, Malone at 1.
Okay, so you went ahead and separated Stockton and Malone. Okay.
I don't think there's really. I think it's pretty clear that Malone is 1, in my opinion.
I feel
and if you want to put someone else at 1, I think Barkley's the clear next guy.
Oh yeah, I don't think
Stock's
anybody
really-
should have Stockton.
Because you can't.
Any of those guys are one.
You could put Malone, but you can put Malone at 1, but you can't put Stockton anything higher than 3, in my opinion. Because I don't think you can put Malone above him at that point, or you can't put
Stockton was not a better player than Barkley or Malone. So it's you'd be hard pressed to find a way to put him above either one of those guys. Yeah.
So
what are you gonna say about Dominique?
Oh, Dominique. Yeah, I only valued him so much more. I didn't value him in the top 5 because he was caught in a really bad spot. The Hawks never really blossomed into a finals team because he caught the tail end of the 80s Celtics dynasty. He caught the really good Pistons team, and right after the Pistons were the Bulls. And he was in the midst of all of that. He could never make it out of the East. Yeah. He couldn't even get to the finals.
And he also he had the same injury as Kevin Durant has right now. I think he ruptured his Achilles or something.
One of the only players
Achilles.
come back from it, right?
Yeah, and I believe he averaged 30 that year and was an MVP candidate. And also, he was met with the same fate as a lot of the great guys in the 80s of it's Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Michael Jordan for the MVPs almost every single year. So it's kind of tough. I don't want to use that as an excuse for him, but a lot of the guys in the 80s, like Julius Erving, are great players, but they never got the MVP for them just because MJ and Magic and Bird always stole it from them. So
yeah.
I'm gonna get into my top 5 now. I switched it right before I sent it to Graham before, and it's changed since then. So number 5, I now have Steve Nash after the whole Nash argument, and he just flip flopped the place with Allen Iverson and Allen Iverson at 4, and then 3 I have John Stockton, Malone at 2, and then Barkley at 1. Because you can't. I don't think you can. Because arguably Barkley, Malone, Stockton are 3 of the best players of all time. I wouldn't say they're top. They're probably in the top 20, top 25 maybe. It depends on where you value them. They just got caught in a shitty situation with the Bulls. The Bulls were the team then. I mean, granted, Barkley won the 93 MVP, went to the finals that year, which is probably the worst thing that could have happened to him because Michael Jordan felt very strongly that he should have won MVP.
Took it personally.
Took it personally. And you got guys like Malone who were what? He's second all time in scoring, if I'm not mistaken, from the website I took that off of.
Not for long.
Yeah.
Oh, is he
And it's-
actually?
Yeah.
I don't know how I
Yes.
didn't know that. Screw it. Flip Malone and Stockton for me.
Okay. That was easy. But then Malone, I think, has been to more finals than Stockton because I think he caught.
Yeah,
he,
Lakers.
he joined the Lakers when they lost to the
That's
Pistons in
very good
03 and
point.
04.
That's a very-
Ah,
forgot about
I
that.
did.
Didn't mention
So
Yeah.
he had that one last chance. So the Lakers win that series that year. This is a whole different list, in my opinion.
Yeah. He
It's
was
crazy things.
he was pretty rough though then, right? Wasn't he?
I think he was good.
Yeah,
I
it was.
think he hurt his knee and then he fell off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Malone. That was
He
the
actually
last.
wasn't-
That was the last year of his career. He
Yeah,
retired.
it really wasn't
after
that bad, honestly.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
I think Gary
so
Payton.
Still would have had
Yeah.
a ring.
speaking of, so he would have been on my list if it were not for him riding Dwayne Wade's coattails to
Yeah,
the
right.
ring in
I know.
06.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes, Gary
Who's that?
Payton would have. Gary Payton.
Just
He would have
shell-
definitely been in my
Mhm.
top 10, probably like top 7 or so, if he hadn't absolutely ridden Shaq and Dwayne Wade to a ring with Miami.
Yeah.
I completely forgot he was on that team, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I actually almost when I wasn't I was researching and I was like I came up to Gary Payton and I was like, when did he win a ring? It's kind of like funny, you just can forget, but
Yeah.
he was great.
Defensive beast. Some of those Sonics teams were so fun to watch, man.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Him.
tough talk coming from me. I never got to watch them play, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
just like
I
going
played
back
them.
and looking at highlights.
I played with them in NBA Jam on Fire Edition. I had the
And again,
they were fun to
I think
play
you-
as.
I think you have to look at as well the era they played in when you're trying to determine who it's almost like who was more deserving of a ring but couldn't get one. So when you look at guys in like the after the Shaq Kobe Lakers in that time period before LeBron joined the Heat, it was Lakers and Celtics mostly. It was Kobe taking over in many instances, but it was as wide open as it had been for a while. So that's why guys like Steve Nash, it's almost like they had their opportunity, but never were able to jump on it. But then you look at a guy like Karl Malone, it's like, all right, he had to run into the greatest player ever pretty much to win. And although he lost to Olajuwon that one year is definitely not ideal, but all the guys that played in the late 80s and the early 90s that had the bulk of their career, they had to play against the greatest playoff performer ever. Pretty much every opportunity they got at the finals, they were going to have to run through them, and they just couldn't do it. So I think that has to play a part into it.
Yeah.
I can argue.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's that wraps it up, huh?
I'm really shocked that we didn't have more of an argument over Chuck and Malone at 1 and 2, but
I think it's I don't know. I like Charles Barkley a lot. I think he's like really underrated. Like he could crack the top 20 for me of all time, honestly. And Malone's for me like certified top
15.
Yeah,
If he had a
I
ring,
think I have him.
If he
I
had a
think I'd
ring,
have him. What'd you say?
if he had a ring, I think he'd be top 10. Definitely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's like 12 for me, but I think Barkley, like people think Barkley was like a one and done guy. Like his MVP season was like his one like flash, but he was really good for a long time.
Mhm.
And again, he just couldn't. The ball that was being played in the 80s and the 90s is just it was just so tough to get to a NBA Finals. A lot harder than it was in the mid 2000s. So
Can't argue there. It's also 12:40 in the morning, so it's
Yeah,
also
for 2
very
hours.
hard to argue.
I'm running on fumes right now.
I got no final thoughts.
I do have one final thought. I would just like to state that until this moment, I made it through this entire podcast without once mentioning the garbage officiating in the Bruins and Canes game
Oh,
today.
here we go.
That's what I was
Nope.
waiting for.
You should have kept it that way.
Nope, I'm not saying
No.
anything else on it. I'm not
Okay,
saying anything else on it.
Here, I'll say
Don't
something.
instigate
I
him.
now I do have a final thought. Okay,
Please, at work in the morning.
I can. Okay, there were a couple calls. I believe. I don't know who
Yeah.
it was I don't remember who it was on the Canes. Someone got their stick slashed out of their hands, which probably should have been. I don't remember who it was. The call that I hope you're not referring to is the one where Mrazek covered it and it got knocked loose and then Coyle scored, because the NHL rules are very flawed in the sense that when you challenge something, you have to challenge a specific. It's almost like the NFL, where it's like, if I don't know how it exactly works. It's almost like if the guy caught it and you were challenging whether it was a catch, but they ended and you couldn't challenge whether he was in bounds or not. Like, you have to challenge one or the other. They can't. They're looking at the whole play, but you have to challenge one or the other. In the NHL, it's, you know what I mean? Like, your coach challenged that it was a hand pass. It wasn't. It was determined that it wasn't a hand pass, and now the outrage comes and says that Mrazek covered the puck, but that couldn't have been looked at. So it's not the fact that the NHL screwed you over. The rules are so stupid, but technically the refs were right in their determination, in my opinion.
I agree that the rules are messed up, and that was a product of the system. But it still doesn't change the fact that as the play was happening live, they missed both an arguable hand pass and a definite goalie interference. Whether Rod Brindamore chose to challenge one or the other, it's like we said, it's a product of the system. But if it's something like...
The thing is, if it was so obvious that Mrazek had covered it, why didn't he challenge that? That's what I'm saying. I don't know what angles they have, but the only angle I was getting is where you couldn't see where the puck was. It was kind of to the side, and it looked like Mrazek maybe closed his hand over it, and then immediately sticks came in. It got knocked loose. But if that puck wasn't fully secure, and the ref saw that it wasn't fully secure, then why wouldn't you have challenged that if it was so obvious? Why would you? I don't think the hand pass was.
So here's my argument with that. If it's something like that in the heat of the moment, where to me, both infractions were pretty clear. And if you're a player on the team, it's even more so in that way, in that fashion. They're up in arms about both. They're like, oh my gosh, it's so clear as day. Both of these, it doesn't matter which one you challenge, it'll get overturned no matter what you say. So I think that probably had something to do with them choosing to challenge the hand pass over the goal interference. Not so much that they thought that the hand pass was more of a easy decision, but that they thought that it didn't matter which one they picked. So that's what I would have to say.
The last thing I'll say on that is that, so my viewpoint is this: it was a hand pass by the Bruins. Therefore, if that Bruins player were to have made a move towards the puck or possessed the puck, it should have been a hand pass. Therefore, it should be blown dead. Mrazek made a play on the puck. Therefore, it now negates the hand pass, and it's a loose puck for anyone to pick up. So I think that it was a hand pass, and if Mrazek had not grabbed it, and that the Bruins guy would have went down and tried to play the puck, it should have been called, and it would have been reversed. But now that the hand pass, you're challenging the hand pass, Mrazek went to play the puck. Therefore, doesn't that negate the hand pass?
So you're right. But even beyond that, I think the goalie interference was much more obvious than the hand pass. And it all boils down to Rod Brindamore's decision to challenge that it was a hand pass versus his decision to challenge goalie interference, which, it's up in the air. But
yeah, it's fair. It was a tough call. I definitely thought it was going to get reversed, without a doubt. And I was like, we're going to have to score another one. But the refs suck. We
scored a shorty on
the delay game
call.
Probably, yeah. Well, I mean, I had to deal with it last year when Achari got upended by someone on the Blues. I couldn't tell you who.
Oh yeah,
it was an obvious trip, and then they scored in that ensuing. I mean, that was the most infuriating non-call ever, because then we were down by 2 at that point. So I know where you're coming from. So, all right,
that's it. You guys are done.
Good.
That's all I got. All right, this is the last one for a little bit. Huh?
Yeah, that was gonna be my final thoughts. It's crazy to me. We're here 21 episodes, and we're doing a season finale, so to say.
6 seasons in a movie.
A movie?
Yes, Jordan got it. Let's go.
There you go. But yeah, it's actually crazy to me how we're
21 in. Yeah. We started this. Graham hopped on a little bit further in, but we started this like at the beginning of quarantine, honestly. Like right when it was like,
and here we are in a worse position than we were.
yeah, really.
Yeah.
And we're not any better. Great. But we have sports, so that's good.
That's true. Yeah, we got that going.
Yeah, we've proved
All
our worth.
That'll do it.
All right.
That will do it. We will.
Anthony.
See y'all later.
We made it this far. All right, cut it.
I'm gonna leave it off on